Hey there, and welcome back, young grasshoppers, ninjas, ninjets, and fellow senseis. As always, I'm your host, Justin Archer, and this is the Optimize Self show that's all about helping you rediscover your health, upgrade your fitness, and optimize your wellness. Of course, all while having fun kicking ass through lifestyle design. Thank you guys for joining me. I'm so excited to have you. But before we begin, I would like to quickly share with you a very brief summary of the Optimized Self concept, the system, and the overall philosophy. So that way, new viewers, listeners, or listeners or watchers, whatever you want to call yourselves, can get a better idea of what this show and its collective fellowship are all about. All right, so without any further ado, let's get right to it. First up, the optimized self concept. Well, the common paradigm is that symptoms cause lifestyle degradation. Well, the optimized self paradigm is exactly the opposite. Lifestyle degradation causes symptoms. So I guess in a nutshell, if you're wondering which came first, the chicken or the egg, lifestyle degradation causes symptoms, which then causes further lifestyle degradation. All right. The optimized self system, I have a whole video on that, which I'll link to in the show notes below, which is called About the Optimized Self System, surprisingly enough, right? But if I were to sum it up in just two sentences, it would be this. The whole system is based on this. The human body is a stimulus response organism that responds to stimulus 24/7 without prejudice. So it's what you do the majority of the time that matters the most, not your best intentions. All right. So hopefully that sums it up for you. If you want to learn more, go check out the About the Optimized Self System, link to in the show notes. And then the optimized self philosophy really is about consistently striving to be the best version of yourself possible so that you can help others do the same. All right. So hopefully one or all three of those, the concept, the system, philosophy, resonate with you. If so, you're in a good spot. Stay tuned. That all said, for the next hour or so, I invite you to keep an open mind and take off what I lightheartedly refer to as your single factor focus monocle, which is most often focused only on exercise, sometimes diet, and very few times exercise and diet. And instead put on your, again, what I lightheartedly refer to as your multi-pronged diversified approach goggles to treat your symptoms and their causes in a more holistic fashion. All right. And I was actually going to save this till later, but what the heck, why not? I'm actually going to do this now and just go over a little something about holistic, because I think that word gets thrown around a lot and a lot of people forget what the heck it actually means. This is totally impromptu. I didn't really think I was going to do this until just now. But if you actually look up, in any dictionary, holistic, it is defined as characterized by comprehension of the parts of something as intimately interconnected and explicable only by reference to the whole. All right. So a lot of people will say a lot of methods and techniques. Wow, I'm really diverging from today's outline, but that's okay. This is important. A lot of people will say their method or their process or whatever treats the body holistically, but are they treating your body is made up of systems that put together made up one and that work together as an entire unit. And so a lot of times people will treat a system holistically. So maybe, for example, what I used to specialize in is posture alignment therapy. And that's great because it does treat the biomechanical aspect of your body holistically. If you have knee pain, posture alignment therapists do not just look at the knee itself. They look at, say, oh, well, how does the position and the functionality of your hips and your shoulders elsewhere in your body, holistically, physically speaking, how are they positively or negatively influencing that knee pain you're having? So that's great. But it's important to keep in mind that we're not just biomechanical beings. We have other stimuli that are influence us. As humans, we're multifaceted. We have many different variables to our lives that factor in to our overall well-being. And none of these components exist in isolation. They all interact and influence with one another. So if there is a positive or negative shift created in one area of life or one of the foundations of health, it is most certainly going to positively or negatively impact all the other areas of your life to some degree. And additionally, sometimes the area that seems to need the attention is not the place to focus on. For example, a lack of performance in exercise doesn't necessarily mean that you need to re-strategize or rethink your approach to exercise. Often, a lack of performance in exercise is usually due to suboptimal breathing, hydration, sleep, nutrition, stress, movement, environment, and/or mindset. So don't be short-sighted and only apply the term holistic to the biomechanical aspect of your health. That's, how your body moves, anatomy, kinesiology, that kind of stuff. Instead, zoom out and expand your focus to include the biochemical, neurological, and environmental aspects as well. All that stimuli that adds up to our overall well-being. With that said, I will try to get back on script, but hope you guys got something out of that, because I sure did just going into it. So for those of you tuning in for the first time, we're already off to a good start. You got some extra bonus material there that I don't usually do in the beginning. Most of this show is very much based on a Q&A format. I definitely believe context always triumphs over content. So this is very much a Q&A show. You ask the questions, I answer them. And you can ask me your questions by texting them to 619-800-2459. Again, that number is 619-800-2459, and I'll put that number up a little bit later on the show in a lower thirds, where you will eventually see me. You can also leave audio questions for me to answer in the form of a voicemail. I love this because it's more personal. It's almost kind of like more like we're in a living room just chatting together. If you do call me and leave me a voicemail, please try to put it into this context. All right, so something like this. Hello, your name. Here is my story. Fill in the blank with story. A little bit about yourself. Here are my goals, what it is you're trying to achieve or accomplish, what symptom you're trying to overcome, that kind of thing. If you were me, but knew everything that you know now, what would you do? Or what would you do differently? And then if you want to add to it to avoid making common mistakes you and others have made along the way. All right, that's the perfect kind of script to use to put to kind of formulate your questions and submit them to me. All right, that would be great. And I would love to answer them in upcoming episodes of the Optimize Self show. You might also try asking yourself why you're asking that question, why you're about to ask me that question, and ask why 7, 5, 3, however many times as needed before sending to me. The better your questions, the fewer amount of times you'll have to ask why. And as you do, the reason for asking the question, quite possibly the answer to it, might arise. And if you do so happen to answer your own question, please share that with me and the other Optimize Self viewers, watchers, audience members, because I would love to know what was your original question. If you came to your own conclusion, found your own answer, what were the questions you asked yourself in between there, from coming up with the question or the problem and then figuring out your own solution? Because I definitely believe that the level of one's success or quality of life can be measured by the quality of questions one asks themselves and/or others. All right. And this is something new I'm trying because I kind of have a new perspective on giving advice, which is I prefer not to. I prefer not to give advice because I believe it encourages entitlement and helplessness. That said, the best piece of advice I can give you is to take responsibility for your own healthcare by educating yourself, because education always triumphs advice. It's kind of like the old folktale or lore. I don't know what you would refer to it as. The old story, give a man a fish for a day and he eats for a day, teach a man a fish and he eats for a lifetime. Well, I would much rather equip you with the knowledge and tools necessary so that you can feed yourself for a lifetime, rather than every time a problem arises, you have to come to me or to some other health professional and say, what do I do? What do I do? I'd much rather people be less of the advice mindset and more of the education mindset, and ask, why should I do this thing and how do I go about doing it? And then if you cover the why and the how, the what really kind of takes care of itself. It's kind of self-explanatory. All right. So with that said, and I have to say that was an awkward yet kind of fun beginning. So as most of my regular viewers will know, it's like, that was a little different, but different's fun. Different's fun. So today's topics. First up, we're going to help Octavia with her shoulder pain, neck pain, tension headaches, TMJ, a crooked rib cage, an elevated shoulder, and scoliosis. Whew. Okay. Then Michael emails in about his wonky back, hips, and feet / ankles. And then I give a little teaser to the upcoming Optimize Self Fundamental Truths. That'll be fun. All this and more coming up on today's show. But first, I would like to thank my ninjas and ninjettes for funding this show. That's right. The Optimize Self show is funded 100% by those individuals who choose to work with me either one-on-one or keep me on some kind of retainer, as well as those that join the Optimize Self Dojo. And I'll share with you how you can find out about this. All right, so let's do a little screen sharing. Here we go. Perfect. So if you go to Optimize Self Ninja, which is the page you see here in front of you, and you scroll down right below this big orange red button, you'll start to see, it says take a peek inside the dojo, you'll see a description of all the different modules and tools and other resources that are included with the Optimize Self Dojo membership. And I won't bore you and read through all these, but you can read them at your own convenience. And these are all the bonuses that are included below. There's quite a bit. And then there's some info on if you want to work one-on-one or if you want to keep me on as retainer. All right. So let me show you a little bit, though, about the dojo. So if you wanted to enter the dojo, if you wanted to purchase membership, you can do so here. Right now it starts for $27, and there's I'll just show you, might as well. There is 4 more memberships. Then this will, right now that's a one-time fee. After that, after these 4 are sold, maybe before, maybe a little after, but they are going to transition into an annual, biannual, and quarterly, can't talk, quarterly reoccurring type of subscription membership plan. All right. And there's a lot of things, as you saw before, included in the Optimize Self Dojo. But if I were to break it up into 3 parts, let me make sure you guys can see this on the screen. I would say first up is the built-in accountability and support group. And that's in that's done inside of a private Facebook group. So you can see here, there's messages. I put up daily videos and some other pertinent content, and we have discussions in here about various topics surrounding health, fitness, wellness, and just general overall living the good life. And so that's great. And I think accountability and support are very important in trying to achieve anything in life, but especially health, fitness, and wellness. The more people that you're accountable to, that hold you accountable, same goes for support, the more likely you are to succeed. So that's probably, I would say, the first part of the Optimize Self Dojo. Then you have, if we go over to events, this will show you our past events. And every Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, we have these live trainings, also known as Hangouts, where members are welcome to come online with me, like I'm recording this right now live. I can have up to, I believe it's 9 or 10 at a time. So maybe, I forget if it's 10 or 11, including me, but up to 10 at a time, people online with me, and you can ask me anything. Sometimes we have them on themes. Like one of the last things we did was on tech's influence on health, and health's influence on tech. The one before that, the theme was a mistake party, because we all know that it's important to learn from mistakes, but there's no rule that says that you have to, that those mistakes have to be your own. You can learn from other people's mistakes, which also, one more very important part of the Optimize Self Dojo is that ability to learn off of the collective time, knowledge, and experience, including, when I say experience, successes and failures or mistakes of the collective group. And that's what's, great. I think a lot of times the problem with self-care is people go into it on their own. But if you go into it with many people, now you are multiplying the time, knowledge, and experience you have to leverage off of, avoid some of the more common mistakes, or even some of those that you don't even know are possible making, and make progress faster. And then finally, last but certainly not least, if you go to Files and the Optimized Self Arsenal, this is a collection here. It is in a live Google Doc, so it's an organic document. This is a collection of resources, guides, tutorials, and tools. This is the most important stuff that I've learned over 14 years, spending tens of thousands of dollars and tens of thousands of hours working with thousands of clients and studying under hundreds of high quality mentors in the Making Bodies Better world. This is the same stuff I share with my one-on-one clients and those that keep me on as retainer. And I won't bore you with everything, but we'll just go to the table of contents so you can see. There's a quick start guide, first aid kit, correcting common posture deviation series. There's modules on how to optimize each of the 7 foundations of health, environment, mindset coming soon. I'm working on those actually now. Optimize Self Habits program. There's the Optimize Self Journal, probably one of the most underutilized tools in the dojo. If anybody in the dojo is watching this now and you're not using that, shame, use it. No, but kick butt list of self-optimization apps. There's a lot of really great stuff in here. As you can see right now, it's 18 pages worth, but that's not including some of the videos that it links out to. So a lot of good information there. And let's see, let's go back. And that about covers it, I think. Yes. All together, though, let's go back here. Go back to the home page. To optimizeself.ninja. So altogether, if you look at everything that's included, the modules, the bonuses, and everything, there is actually over $3,650 worth of value delivered per year. And you can get started today for only a one-time payment of $27. Again, there's 4 memberships left. After that, the price is going to turn into a reoccurring type of subscription, okay? But even still, even if you paid $360 a year, if there's more than 10 times that worth of value in it, I still count that as a very good deal. And that's what I try to do with anything I sell online is whatever I sell it for, I try to deliver 10 times worth the value in that product. So you guys are paying only 1/10 of the value. All right. So thank you to all the ninjas and ninjettes for being awesome, and a special shout out to our newest member, Octavia, who just joined the other day. It's because of Octavia and other ninjas and ninjettes that this show exists and is able to help people. And a little fun fact before we get started, the principles shared on the Optimized Self show here are the same that the ninjas and ninjettes inside the Optimized Self dojo use to rediscover their health, upgrade their fitness, and optimize their wellness. So if you haven't already done so, go to optimizeself.ninja, check out everything that's included inside the dojo memberships. You can also, at the very, or towards almost the very bottom, you can check out if you want to work with me one-on-one or keep me on as a retainer. That would be great too. I would love the opportunity to put our heads together and work together. But yeah, definitely check out the dojo. I think that's the best bang for your buck. You'll get the best ROI, I would say. All right, so let me grab some water. I will take the screen share off and then you guys can see me and we'll get started. Okay, let me bring some stuff up here. Okay. There's all our little ninja guy back. Howdy there. Let me put up a lower third like I promised I was going to do so you guys know where to find me. And sorry, I don't have an automatic one prepared. Been meaning to get around to do it. Hopefully this year I will. Okay. Boom. So that's me, Justin Archer, aka Sensei. You can find me over at optimizeself.ninja. And like I said, you can text or voicemail me your questions to 619-800-2459. All right. So with that said, let me lower the camera there just a scotch. And I'm going to close some windows up so we can save some bandwidth. Won't someone think about the bandwidth? Anybody who watches South Park will get that that joke. Okay, so let me get one more drink of water before we start. I know, I keep on saying that. I want to create more dramatic pause. Okay, so first topic of the day, newly knighted ninjet, or ninjas knighted? I don't know. Are they sworn in? I don't know. I got to figure that out. If anybody knows the answer to that, please let me know. Anyways, we're going to go with knighted. So newly knighted ninjet Octavia from the Optimize Self Dojo took the Optimize Self test. Which for those of you who aren't familiar with what that is, that's something that Dojo members have access to. It's a self-assessment questionnaire where I pose some questions, and then it basically gives me the information I need to better give someone more specific advice to their unique condition. All right. So I will recite the questions that I asked Octavia and then read back her answer, so you guys could hopefully also follow along and learn from, maybe you're in a similar, maybe you're in the same boat or a similar boat as Octavia, and you can follow along and learn some stuff as I respond to Octavia's Optimize Self test. All right, so here we go. Let's see. When it comes to your health, fitness, and or wellness, what is the biggest problem or issue that you struggle with or have in the past? Octavia says, I have daily pain, shoulder pain, neck pain, tension headaches. My doctor diagnosed me with TMJ problems. I also have a curved spine, crooked rib cage, and my shoulders are uneven. I exercise anyway. It's hard to live this way. My doctor tells me the pain comes with getting older. I'm 35. That's not old. And I don't buy that it's normal to live with all this pain. Octavia and anyone in a similar situation like this, I agree. Age is not a determining factor, especially at 35. I would even say at 95, but definitely at 35, age is not a determining factor. Only the accumulative stimuli that your body is frequently subjected to matters. All right. So Octavia, now that you are a member of the Optimize Self Dojo, there's a couple of things I would recommend you check out, and that is the shoulder, neck, headaches / migraine, and TMJ routines that are housed inside the Optimize Self First Aid Kit. And those are housed in the Optimize Self Arsenal, and those are housed inside the Optimize Self Dojo, which is the private Facebook group that either you are or you should be a member here anytime soon, and you have access to. All right. Also, because you mentioned some symptoms, but you also mentioned some postural misalignments. So I'd also recommend checking out the Correcting Common Posture Deviation series, and specifically look at the ones for elevated shoulders, torso rotation, and scoliosis. All right. And again, all those can be found inside the Optimize Self Arsenal, which is in the dojo. If you have any questions about finding this, just let me know. All right, next question. If you could ask me one question about your health, fitness, and or wellness that you would like for me to answer in an upcoming episode of the Optimize Self Show, what would it be? And Octavia says, I was diagnosed with TMJ problems. What can I do to relieve tension in my neck, head, and shoulders, and is this connected to or caused by my scoliosis? Yes, it is. Everything's definitely interconnected, just like I touched upon earlier in the show. And if you didn't see, go back to the beginning about defining or redefining holistic and how all the parts of the body work together. Your neck, your head, your shoulders, your scoliosis, which obviously is your spine. None of those live in isolation. Your spine and your neck and your head, all those things are connected. They don't live in little bubbles that don't touch each other. So yes, they are all absolutely connected. Again, like I just mentioned to your previous question, check out everything inside the Optimize Self First Aid Kit and the Correcting Common Posture Deviations series for exercise explanations of why you're having those symptoms and how those parts of the body interrelate with one another, how they influence one another positively, negatively, as well as video tutorials, exercise video tutorials on how to go about correcting them. Okay. What else? Oh, and I know right now we're talking about, and again, today's theme. Maybe I should change the title of today's from wonky pain, posture, and performance to, defining or redefining holistic. I might do that. I don't know. But speaking of holistic, right now we're just talking about the biomechanical aspect causes of your symptoms, the physical aspects, how your body is situated, posture, that kind of thing. But make sure to, and I would say even maybe definitely, I would say prior to doing the exercises, make sure that you have addressed, they don't have to be perfect, but at least you've addressed, try to get them up to, I would say 80 percentile or above, your breathing, hydration, sleep, nutrition, stress, movement, environment, and mindset. Okay. And granted, those last two aren't foundations of health, but they're environment, mindset, but they are two things that are always influencing the 7 foundations of health, exercise being the 7th. So exercise is important, but it's not the most important thing. It's part of the recipe, but it's not the entire recipe. Or if you like math, it's part of the equation, but it's not the entire equation. Okay. Let's see. All right, one more. If you could ask me another question about health, fitness, wellness, whatever, what would it be? And Octavia said, is there really no way for women to target belly fat loss? Well, there has been a lot of debate on whether or not spot reduction really works, but cold shower therapy has been proven to burn more brown adipose tissue, i.e. fat, that surrounds your internal organs and exists in your stomach area. So I would suggest cold shower therapy. And I actually have a really, really educational, funny, let's call it edutaining video, which I'll link to in the show notes below on cold shower therapy. It's actually the first video I did of taking a cold shower. And the only way I got through it was, especially the first 5 to 7 days, was recording it. So check that out. You can learn a lot. You can also laugh at my misfortune. Don't feel guilty. I laugh at myself watching that video. So hopefully you get a good laugh, you learn something, and enjoy some cold shower therapy. Other than that, I would just, and also too, for some people might say, oh, that's a bit extreme. Well, it might be maybe not extreme, but it may be premature, because if you haven't addressed the basics, by which I mean the first 7 foundations of health: breathing, hydration, sleep, nutrition, stress, movement, and exercise, in that order of priority, starting with breathing as the most important, then yeah, you may not have to do something as extreme. So make sure you have those areas of your life under control first. The other thing I would do, and this is a little bit more on the nutrition foundation of health, is you can train your body to burn fat by eating more of it. Just make sure it's of a high quality source. So what I mean by that is most people, and this isn't everybody, and Octavia, it may not be you, but most people have trained their body to run off of glucose, which is from carbs, which when carbs break down ultimately become sugar. And that's why people, get kind of moody or irritable or just tired if they don't eat every 2 to 3 hours, because when you ingest glucose, carbs, or sugar, you go up and then you go down, and then you have to eat again, you go up, then you go down. But fat, and I'm talking high quality fats from like grass-fed butter, grass-fed beef, different types of fish, different nuts except peanuts, coconut products, avocado, things like that, assuming that you don't have any intolerances and or sensitivities to any of those types of foods. Those are great high quality sources of fats, and a gram of fat has 9 calories per gram. A gram of carbohydrates has only 4 calories. And it's always important to ask yourself some of these what may seem like very simple questions, but what is a calorie? Well, it's a unit of, or a measuring unit for energy, right? So we need calories to energize us, but you get much more energy. You get actually more than twice as much energy out of a gram of fat as you do out of a gram of carbohydrates. Again, make sure it's high quality fat. I'm not talking about like Twinkies and pizza and stuff like that. Stay away from those. But yeah, fat will take you a lot further, and it'll also train your body to run off of fats if you become what's known as fat adaptive. If you train your body long enough, and depending on the person and the type of diet they're on, excuse me, I will tickle my throat. It could take anywhere from a couple weeks to a couple months to get into that fat adaptive state. But once you do, yeah, your body will naturally burn fat continuously throughout the day rather than looking for glucose and carbs. But you have to train it to. You have to stop eating or at least diminish the amount, not totally go zero carb, but lower your carb intake. But here's the big mistake that most people make is they'll go zero or very, very low carb, but then they also don't increase their fat intake, and then they feel terrible. And it's like you gotta eat more fat, because that's what that's going to be what energizes you, and two, that's going to be what trains your body to burn fat. All right, so there's more on this inside the optimizing your nutrition module inside the Optimize Self Arsenal. Excuse me, I don't know why I have this little tickle in my throat. Let's see. Okay, so now we get into some questions about that are questioning the quality of each of the foundations of health for Octavia. All right. So first up is, how often do you practice any forms of meditation and or conscious, ideally diaphragmatic breathing? Octavia says never. So Octavia, I would recommend practicing 15 minutes of conscious diaphragmatic breathing total per day. Again, you don't have to take out 15 minutes from your day and do it. I definitely even wouldn't recommend that, because most people, it's too hard to focus on, like to do 15 minutes all at once. Maybe 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the middle of the day, 5 minutes in the evening, or even do 3 minutes 5 times a day, or do 15 sets of 1 minute, whatever fits into your schedule. And what I mean by conscious diaphragmatic breathing is, I'll back up here for a quick second and show you. So basically, if you put your hands on your hips like Superman or Wonder Woman, right above the bony part, right where it gets a little soft, softer on some of us than it is others. But when you breathe in, it should expand outwards here to the side. So like that, almost like you're blowing air into a balloon, right? For like maybe a kid's party or something. Or if you're an adult and you like balloons, no judgment, that's fine too. But like you're blowing air into a balloon, and that balloon will expand, you want that east, west, and even a little bit into your lower back, that expansion of air, okay? Sorry, I'm moving some windows around. And that's when you know your diaphragm is working. Your diaphragm basically is dome shaped, ties into the bottom here of your rib cage, goes down. It ties into your lower back, your pelvic floor, your hip flexors, and really your entire pelvic girdle. And breathing like this is key to releasing tension in and around your shoulders, your neck, your head, your jaw, your rib cage, your spine, and pretty much everywhere in your body. And doing so will feed slack to all the trouble areas that you mentioned where you're feeling symptoms. It'll also ensure that you get an ample amount of blood and oxygen to your brain and other vital organs. So of course that'll be helpful in relieving your headaches. I think you said you had tension headaches. And here's the thing, I think a lot of times people take for granted breathing, because it's something that our body, our central nervous system has basically automatic backups. We go to sleep and we're still breathing. Well, the average person per day, and this is more of a sedentary person, so add on to it if you're more active, but the average person takes 22 to 30,000 breaths per day. Okay, and you're doing it all the time. You may be breathing more at some points of the day and less during others, of course, but you're doing it all the time. And unless you're doing wind sprints, you really shouldn't be breathing up here. This is auxiliary breathing. This is, again, if you're doing wind sprints, or our ancestors were running from a mountain lion or chasing down an antelope or something like that. I don't know what they did back then. But whatever they did, running, high intensity, that's what this type of breathing up here is for. But when you're sitting around and just talking with your friends, it should be breathing. The breathing should be coming from the diaphragm. And think about it, that's 22 to 30,000 breaths you should be getting down here. But if it's not, then I guarantee you're compensating by breathing with your auxiliary or secondary breathing muscles in your chest and your neck and your shoulders, which then what's right above that? Your neck and your head. So then if you're not breathing 22 to 30,000 times per day here, I guarantee you it's happening up here. And you, oh yeah, you have that elevated shoulder, you got the tension and everything. Do you think maybe that you're doing basically 22 to 30,000 tiny shoulder shrugs each day has anything to do with it? Yes, yes, I do. As well as any pain in the lower back, hip and pelvic region. Well, if you're breathing with your diaphragm, every breath, every day you're doing basically 22 to 30,000 repetitions of an inside out massage, which is bringing blood and oxygen and movement, expansion, contraction of your lower back muscles, your pelvic floor, your hips, all kinds of stuff there down in that region. And if you're not, you're missing out on a lot of motion that should be going on down there. So that's going to make that area, your lower back, your hips, your pelvis, all that very stiff. Okay, so it's hurting both areas of the body by not breathing correctly. And there's more on this in the optimizing your breathing module. So Octavia, definitely check that out. And anyone else who's interested in optimizing the breathing, join the dojo and check that out. Okay, how much do you weigh? 117 pounds. How many ounces of water you drink per day? That's why I asked how much you weigh. Is the 64 ounces, Octavia says. So that's pretty, sorry, 64, I don't know why I put how much time, 28. I put the wrong thing. Anyways, that is pretty close, it's pretty good. I typed something wrong, excuse me. Yeah, you wanna try to consume half your body weight in ounces of water per day. So this is pretty good. Just remember that half your body weight in ounces of water is bare minimum. Okay, so you want to make sure to consume more on days that you exercise, days when maybe like what I'm doing right now, you have to talk a lot because you expend a lot of moisture just by opening and closing your mouth, which obviously in this episode I'm doing a lot. Ask my wife, I do it every day, I talk a lot. Also, when you consume caffeinated and or alcoholic beverages, you want to drink water at a 2-to-1 ratio. So for example, you have a cup of coffee, that's fine, but then have 2 cups of water to offset the dehydrating components that caffeine has. Same goes for alcohol. If you have a glass of wine, have 2 glasses or 2 cups of water, okay? And why is hydration so important? Well, hydration is vital to the length, tension, function, and adaptability of the muscles, the myofascia, and basically all the other connective tissues throughout your body. Being chronically dehydrated is like turning your body into sinewy, dried up beef jerky, which I know we don't want. Also, being dehydrated puts an instant stop on the fat burning process. For your body to metabolize fat, it actually requires water. So if anybody's struggling with weight loss, make sure you're consuming enough water, because if you're not, your body is not going to be as efficient as it could or should be at burning fat. Also, too, for mental clarity, for people that suffer, Octavia, like you said, from like headaches, migraines, things like that, or maybe some people who just, you feel like you're not thinking as clearly, can't remember things. Being as little as 5% dehydrated lowers cognitive performance by 30%, just by 5%. It's not that much. Again, I go a lot deeper and wider into the topic of hydration in the Optimizing Your Hydration module, so definitely check that out. But we're not done with hydration. Got one more thing about hydration, which is how much and what kind of salt do you consume daily? And Octavia says sea salt, very little. Sea salt is good. I always suggest using pink Himalayan salt just because it's cleaner from a cleaner source. But Celtic sea salt is good, and just add it. I know a lot of people will usually respond with very little because they think salt is bad. Salt is not bad. I put it on almost everything and every meal. And yes, I have all my biomarkers checked out, and I always tell people I'm pretty much at a low to mid-level athletic performer, except I train nowhere near like an athletic performer. Yeah, you don't have to pour on the salt. If you put too much salt on, your taste buds will let you know by going, yeah. But yeah, sprinkle it on. Don't be shy with it. Not going to hurt you. I've never heard anybody getting hurt or dying or any negative thing from adding salt. I mean, yes, of course, obviously, if you just took a salt shaker, pink Himalayan salt, and just down the thing, one, I'd be surprised if you can even keep that down. That would be amazing, not like throwing it up. But yes, obviously, doing something silly like that would not be good. But sprinkle it on, each of your meals is great. Sometimes I even just add it in my water, especially times when I cycle off of caffeine, like this week I'm doing. Yes, I didn't do it today, but yesterday I put a teaspoon of pink Himalayan salt and about 12 ounces of cold water and just stirred it up and drank it over 20 or 30 minutes. It's good to help resynthesize the adrenals. So yeah, definitely use your salt, because the reason, and I should say this before we move on to the next thing, the reason you want to consume ample amounts of salt, not to be confused with sodium, and preferably pink Himalayan salt, Celtic sea salt's okay too, is because the salt will act as kind of a taxi, or I guess in modern day terms, Uber, basically a shuttle for the water to get to the parts of the body that need it the most. Okay. Again, more on this inside the Optimizing Your Hydration module, which is found inside the dojo. All right, let's move on to talking about sleep. On a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being the best, how would you rate the quality of your sleep? Octavia says 5. So kind of in the middle. So there's a couple of things, Octavia and anyone else struggling to get high quality sleep, that I'd recommend doing. First up, turn off all screens. I guess I can point at this, but then you might take it offensively because I'm pointing at you. So turn off all screens at least an hour before bed. The reason being is because the white and blue light will interfere with your circadian rhythms. I won't go into all the geeky science about which hormones and everything. But yeah, you definitely want to stay away from blue and white light. In the morning, in the middle of the day, it's actually good for you. It helps keep you awake and wake you up. But during the evening, you want to stay away from it. So if you can, turn all screens off an hour before bed. If you have to use your laptop or mobile device later in the evening, I would definitely recommend using Flux. It's I think you just Google Get Flux, or it's F.lux, and it's an app that basically, the way I explain it, is a sunset for your laptop or desktop, works on either, and they have it for Mac and Windows and I think even Linux. And basically what it does is, as the sun sets where you are in the world, it'll know where you are by whatever it does, techno, geo, GPS, blah, blah, blah. But as the sun goes down, you'll notice your screen gets almost orange reddish hue to it. And some people might say, well, isn't that weird? You only notice it for the first day or two, and then it seems completely normal. But what it's doing is it's filtering out the blue and white light. It's a lot easier on the eyes. And it's actually really surprising. Every once in a while, I turn it off to see what my screen would look like with it. And I'm like blinded by it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I used to look at my screen for so many hours per day without Flux. Like, it hurts my eyes now to look at a normal screen. It's like, they don't have it for mobile devices, or I think you have to like jailbreak it. It's a pain in the butt, but just make sure you turn down the brightness of your screen so that you can still see the text, but you don't need it at when you go to the Apple stores and it's demo and the brightness is turned all the way up. There's no reason that you need it that bright, especially at night. Turn it down to like 20-25% brightness and you'll be fine. Let's see. Also, try to consistently go to bed at the same time 7 days per week. Whatever that time is, 8, 9, 10, 11. Try to go to bed before 11, because after that, your body, you get a surge of cortisol to keep you up, and then it's actually easy to stay up till midnight, 1, 2, 3, 4. So try to get to bed before 11 if you can, and try to make it a consistent time. Also, moving on to your environment that you sleep in, try to make your bedroom, as dark as possible. Use blackout shades. Also, try to make it cool in the room. About 66 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit is what's been found to be ideal sleeping temperature, or to improve quality of sleep. Let's see, you can They actually have, I just forgot the name of it, chili pad. That's what it's called, chili pad, which is actually like it's a little sheet that goes over your mattress, and it can change the temperature of the bed actually on either side. So you can set it the same if you're a single person sleeping in one bed by yourself, or if you're a couple, you can have it set at different temperatures. That's pretty cool, the chili pad. A low-tech way to cool down your body is simply to put one bare foot outside of the blankets. That works really well. I know from personal experience and working with other people. Also, oh, sorry, going back, one thing you can do to help it darkness, like if you live in a city or there's a lot of ambient light around, use an eye mask. Those work really well. And real men wear eye masks. They're manly. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. So yeah, try to make it dark, try to make it cool, try to, I always tell people, try to, not have computers and TVs in the bed. Let it be a place for sleep. It's a bedroom, not the living room or your office. Also, Octavia, if you recall the diaphragmatic breathing that we talked about earlier, try practicing 5 minutes of that immediately prior to going to bed, and that'll help. And let's take it actually 2 steps further. One, practice doing it in the static back position, which in the exercise routines that I've made mention to before for the various symptoms and postural misalignments that you talked on, definitely static back's going to be in there. But basically, all it is, let me scoot back and I'll show you. Basically, if you're lying on your back with your legs up and you put something under it, about like 18 to 20 inches high, like a chair or an ottoman, and then so imagine there's one there, and then your arms out between 90 and 45 degrees, and you just relax here and focus on that breathing. And as you're focusing on that conscious diaphragmatic breathing, take a 1 to 2 inhale to exhale ratio. So for example, 3 seconds in, 6 seconds out. You get it. So what that type of breathing will do is help calm your central nervous system, which will improve the quality of your sleep. And doing it in the static back position, what that position does is it helps neutralize your pelvis. It helps unload any tension on your lower back. You actually get like a heating pad-like sensation in your lower back because all the blood and obviously you're from breathing, the oxygen is kind of focused in that lower back area. It's also going to be using your body weight and gravity and opposition of it against the floor to remove rotation of your hips and your torso. It's going to help segmentally promote segmental elongation or extension in your spine. It's going to help reset your shoulders back. So that way you're bringing a better aligned body to you into bed. Okay. So there's a couple of things you can do to improve the quality of your sleep. How many hours do you sleep on average per night? Octavia says 7. Adults require 6 to 9 hours of sleep per night. So 7 is good. That's, I'd say, probably what I get. I try to shoot for 7.5, probably more oftentimes than not, I get 7. I want to make sure that Octavia and everyone else knows 6 hours of quality sleep is better than 9 hours of poor quality of sleep. So quality triumphs quantity when it comes to sleep. All right, and let's see. What position do you usually sleep in? Octavia says her sides. So here's my issue with sleeping on your sides. It inevitably leads to postural asymmetries, basically differences left to right, which then compromises your functionality and causes various forms of chronic pain symptoms. Very much like the ones, Octavia, you mentioned that you're struggling with. We already talked about doing the 5 minutes of static back, conscious diaphragmatic breathing immediately prior to going to bed. That way you bring a better aligned body to bed with you. Because a lot of people don't think of sleeping as an activity like they would. I'm going to go play soccer, so I'm going to go warm up, whether it stretches or do some movements or something. But I'm going to go, warm up for soccer. Well, sleeping is activity. It's something that, for example, Octavia, and I'm sure a lot of other people do for 7 hours per day. And remember, it's what you do the majority of the time that matters the most, not your best intentions. So how much you sleep, the quality of your sleep, and the position that you're sleeping in has a bigger impact on your overall well-being than an hour of exercise you do per day. And let's be honest, most people don't exercise for an hour per day. It actually statistically comes out to be about 15 to 20 minutes per day. And most people are doing it wrong. But even if you were exercising an hour per day, an hour of exercise cannot offset 6, 7, 8, or 9 hours of poor quality sleep in a poor quality position, something like sleep on your sides, which, like I said, leads to asymmetries and causes dysfunctions of the body, which then causes compensations, which then causes the symptoms that Octavia, you yourself already mentioned. So instead, what I would suggest trying is sleeping on your back with either 0 to 1 pillows, like one is plural, 0 to 1 pillows. How would you say that? I don't know. You get it. 0 to 1 pillows under your head and 1 to 2 pillows under your knee and lower leg. And what that'll do is it helps place your body almost kind of like if you were in a massage chair, reclined back, or almost if you were in a mini version of the static back position that I just showed you. Obviously, your legs aren't as elevated, but that will help place your pelvis in a neutral position. It'll help unload your lumbar spine, your lower back. So try sleeping like that. If your neck feels hyperextended, go ahead and use more pillows, but eventually you want to get it to the point where you're at 0 pillows or 1 really thin one, so that way your ear is in line with your shoulder. You don't want your head thrusted forward for 7 hours out of every 24, because that obviously will lead to your head being in a forward position, your shoulders round forward, et cetera, et cetera. And if you find yourself, because sleeping is a habit, I know it's a tough habit to change, if you find yourself going to sleep on your back, but then waking up on your sides, put another 1 or 2 pillows under your lower legs. And what that'll do is act more as a cradle for your legs, and it'll be harder for you to shift your body weight over to one side. You may try in the middle of the night, but then the pillows will kind of push you back. So in some extreme cases, people may need 3 or 4 pillows under their legs, but start with 1 or 2 and see how you do, and then only add more if need be. All right, and all the sleep stuff we talked about and more, there's more found inside the Optimizing Your Sleep module. Let's see. Now we get to nutrition, but I'm going to take a break and grab some water. Some people might have thought I was going to thank some sponsors. This episode of the Optimize Self Show brought to you by water. All right, so do you eat any of the following foods on a daily or weekly basis? Octavia says dairy. And basically on the Optimize Self test, for anybody who hasn't taken it, I list 7 of the most high inflammatory foods that most people are intolerant and or sensitive to, those being gluten, soy, peanuts, corn, eggs, dairy, and then sugar / artificial sweeteners. So Octavia, given that you do eat dairy on a daily, weekly basis, what I would suggest doing is trying to avoid these and those 6 other foods for a 3 to 4 week period, and then try reintroducing them one at a time. It sounds like the only one you consume regularly is the dairy, but try reintroducing them and see how your body responds to it. Basically what I'm explaining is a very simplified version of what's known as an elimination diet. An elimination diet, let me make clear, is not something that you follow for a lifetime. It's a diagnostic tool that you do for 2 to 3 months, depending on how many foods you're testing. So that way you can start out with a clear slate. And then it helps you identify what foods are harming you so that you can eliminate them from your diet, because you don't want to be eating something that is poisoning you, basically. And then it also helps identify what foods are good for you, that are replenishing, so that you can consume more of those foods. All right. And these 7 most common high inflammatory foods, they've been found to cause systemic inflammation. So a lot of times people will say, well, I'm fine with those foods, to which I respond, listen, I have no reason to not believe you. Like, why would you lie to me? But from my experience, 14 years, working with people, what I've found is, unless you have done an elimination diet, you've maybe done a Coca Pulse test, or you've done something like a LEAP MRT test where you've tested your blood against it. But also I still suggest people do an elimination diet. Unless you have some evidence to show that you are not just saying like, oh, I don't know, I think I'm fine with that food, no offense, I don't believe you, and neither should you. So you should have some evidence to prove that you are okay with the food. Like if someone says, well, how do you know you're okay with it? I do 1 to 2 elimination diets per year. I always use a Coca Pulse test, which I won't get into all that, but I use that as a second kind of opinion. So I'm regularly testing these things because sometimes intolerances and sensitivities can change. Some people who weren't sensitive to eggs can become sensitive to them if they eat them too often or too large amounts. So, it's important to, when you're trying to diagnose something or troubleshoot something, or even something's good but you want to improve it, it's definitely important to quantify. When it comes to nutrition and food intolerances, I always tell people it's cheap fire insurance. Just assume you are sensitive to a food until you have evidence to prove otherwise. Okay. And Octavia, many of the symptoms that you listed correlate with the consumption of these foods, including dairy. And a lot of times when people think sensitivities or intolerances, they think just stomach. Actually, I had this discussion with someone just a couple weeks ago, and they said, oh, I'm fine with those foods. I said, well, how do you know? And they said, oh, I don't get an upset stomach. I don't get constipated or any of those type of, stomach digestive issues. And I said, well, did you know that just because you're not affected, gastric wise, digestive wise, that it couldn't negatively affect you skin wise, muscle wise, joint wise, cognitively wise, that type of thing. And he was like, no, I didn't know. I said, yeah, it causes systemic inflammation throughout your body. And depending on the person, it can manifest in different ways. Like my stepdad and I, if he eats gluten, even a relatively small amount, he gets a really upset stomach. Me, it doesn't really affect me that way unless I eat large amounts. I mean, literally, unless I ate like a large or extra large pizza by myself, would it upset my stomach? Me, though, if I have like a sandwich with 2 pieces of bread, cognitively, I feel a decline for the next 48 to 72 hours, depending on how much gluten I had. All right. So that's one way that one food, affects 2 people differently. And that's due to a lot of things like epigenetics, our environment, how it's influenced you and how it influenced your parents and where they're from and what they ate growing up and their grandparents and so on and so forth. So just it's important to be aware of those things. And again, there's more in the elimination diet and how to go about optimizing your nutrition inside the optimizing your nutrition module. I always tell people I don't like to tell people, hey, eat this way or eat like me, because although biomechanically speaking, we're all very, similar or the same, maybe with the exception of the rare, statistically speaking, rare birth defect, we're all the same. Biochemically speaking, we're all very unique individuals. And so it would be blasphemy for me to say, hey, eat no carbs or eat this exact amount of carbs or eat what I eat because it's good for me, because what's healthy for me may not be healthy for Octavia or for someone else, and vice versa. So what I teach inside is, here's some principles and guidelines you can use. Here's somewhere to start. And then here's how to figure out what is and is not healthy for you. All right. Seems fair, I think. Okay, now let's move on to stress. On a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being stressed out, how would you rate your stress level? And Octavia says 6. So a couple things you can do to help with stress. Number 1 is eliminate as much distress. Distress is the bad stress. Eustress is the good stress. Eliminate as much distress as you can. So that could be people, things, jobs, anything like that. Also, train your response to stress. So what I mean by that is using things like heart rate variability training. You might also see it called HRV, which is just an acronym for heart rate variability training, which uses breathing as a way to train your stress response. Basically, you can train your flight or fight response kind of mechanism. That's well, that's inherited, but it's built into each and every one of us. And also capitalize off of eustress, certain forms of exercise, just going for a walk, sex, all those things are good forms of eustress. Going one step back to the breathing. Breathing is probably the simplest and fastest way of altering your stress levels. And again, going into heart rate variability training, it's beyond the scope of today's episode. There's more of that included inside the Optimizing Your Stress module. But I will say this, it is amazing just by learning how to control your breathing, the type of granular control you have over what's happening inside your body. And unless I experienced this, I wouldn't have believed it myself. But you can do something like be really upset, stressed out about something, or do some high intensity exercise in as little as 3 breaths, drop your resting heart rate significantly, and not only see it as a number. I mean, I've done this with multiple different forms of heart rate, measuring devices attached to me, but you can also just feel it, like a calmness come over you. So breathing, again, one of those things that is highly overlooked, because again, people are just like, breathing, like I'm doing it because I'm not dead. And I'm like, yeah, but you might be doing it like a I don't know, preschooler in a play, which although yes, they're cute and adorable, some of them, or grade school or junior high plays, they are atrocious to sit through. I have to be honest, most of the times when I see people breathing out there and the way they're breathing, I'm just like, what the hell are you doing? Like no one taught you to breathe. Quite frankly, I think that's something that should be taught throughout school, because most people come out of high school and college breathing like, well, jackasses. And it's not their fault though. They just don't know, and they don't know. Again, we take for granted we're breathing, we're alive. So what? What a huge impact it can have on us. But it shouldn't really come as too much of a surprise, because again, you're breathing 22 to 30,000 times per day. You're doing it 24/7. How could it not have a big impact on your overall well-being? Much, much more than something like exercise, which most people only do 15 to 20 minutes per day. Much more than even sleep. And sleep is really important, right? Sleep you're doing for 6 to 9 hours per every 24-hour cycle that we call a day. Breathing you're doing all the time. Maybe unless you're David Blaine or some of those deep sea people, which hold their breath for like 20 something minutes, which is amazing. All right, so how many minutes do you spend standing/walking per day? So now we're getting into the movement stuff. And Octavia says 5 hours. And just to skip ahead, my follow-up question to this is, how many hours do you spend sitting/stagnant per day? She says only 2 hours. So Octavia, I have to applaud you. Your active to stagnant ratio is very good, better than most. Most people, they sit a lot more than they stand and or walk around. I would just say make sure that you're standing and walking correctly. So I'll recommend, and I'll include in the show notes below, a post I did called "How Should You Be Standing?" Because if you're doing it for 5 hours, that in combination with walking, you want to make sure you're doing it correctly, as well as a post titled "How Should You Be Walking?" So both of those I'll link to below. And same goes for, sitting. If you're spending 2 hours a day sitting, which is actually pretty good, myself at times I've even sit more than that. You want to make sure you're doing the correct way. So how should you be sitting would be another good post I'll link to down below for you to check out. A lot of people, just to quickly pause on the sitting topic, a lot of people ask, how should you be sitting? Well, if you haven't already noticed, I'm recording this from the floor, and you see me fidgeting around and moving and everything. Well, that's because, and most people who have seen the show before know me, knows what I'm about to say. Octavia, you may not, so I'll say it. And that is, your next position is always your best position. Try not to get stuck in any one position for longer than, I'd say, about 20, 25 minutes, which seems to work out perfectly with what's known as the Pomodoro technique, which is a type of productivity type of thing that people in offices and also freelancers use a lot. So you can check that out, Pomodoro technique. I wish they paid me for that. But yeah, the reason being is because you don't want to, your body's going to adapt to whatever you do the most, right? Form follows function. So if you sit a particular way, like a lot of people ask me, Justin, is sitting cross-legged bad? And I said, no, but sitting cross-legged with your right leg crossed over your left, and then only your right leg crossed over your left, and maybe you uncross them, but you put your right back over your left and never crossing your left leg over your right, that's bad. If you sat 5 minutes with your right leg crossed over your left, and for the next 5 minutes crossed over your left leg over your right, and then for the next 5 minutes just had both feet on the ground, and then the next 5 minutes sat, Indian style, the next 5 minutes did Indian style, but the other leg switched over, and the next 5 minutes did half lotus, And then the next 5 minutes, half lotus, but switch legs. And then next 5 minutes, diva pose, you know, and then like the next 5 minutes, diva pose the other way. You get it. That would be good because you're changing up the position and you're changing the way that gravity and your muscles and different parts of your body are situated. So you're not getting stuck in any one position. You're not becoming stagnant. All right. All right. And there's more on this inside the optimizing your movement module inside the module. Oh, hey, it's Carmen, the Optimize Self Dojo K9. She just briefly walked by and said hi. All right, so now we get into working out. Let me grab some water and we will continue on. Okay, so how many times per day do you work out? Octavia says 4. How long do you work out for? She says 60 minutes. So Octavia, I'm curious to know, what is the purpose of your workouts and exercise? You know, is it weight training? Is it yoga, Pilates, plyometrics, cardio, little combination of them? I'd be curious to know. And maybe even more importantly is, do you enjoy it? You know, I think that's important, because a lot of times people exercise. It's one thing to exercise because you like exercising. I totally get that, and that's fine. Of course, you still want to make sure you're doing it correctly and make sure you've addressed the other 6 prior foundations of your health to make sure you get the most out of exercise. Also to make sure that you don't injure yourself, you're not overtraining. But a lot of times people will tell me like, oh, I have to go exercise. And I'm like, oh, like, what are you doing? I'm gonna go run for an hour. Like, oh, do you like running? Well, some people say yes. And to them I say, run on, like, awesome, good for you. But others are like, no, but you know, I have to and everything. And I'm like, no, you don't. Actually, it's a pretty inefficient way of improving one's health. You know, hell, exercise less, eat more. And most people are like, really? Sign me up for that. I'm like, yeah, it's a lot more effective. And basically the question I would have everyone pose to themselves, and again, I'm totally not against exercise. I love exercise. But ask yourself, is exercise the most efficient means of achieving your goals? All right. And also remember that depending on the quality and state of your other foundations of health, exercise can either be a positive or negative stress or stimulus to your body. So exercise is neither good nor bad. It depends on really what are you doing in your other areas of life. If you're chronically dehydrated and chronically sleep deprived, and you know, I know, you know, it's been taught that, well, just push through it and go do that hour workout the next morning. I guarantee you're doing more harm to your body than you would good. So set aside the ego that's telling you should push forward and persevere, and try to work a little smarter than harder and take the day off, you know, get rehydrated, get some sleep. So that way, when you do, excuse me, go to workout, you're going to get much more benefit out of it. All right. So don't let good intentions be your downfall. And something I always tell people is, as long as you have addressed and are 80% optimal in the other 6 foundations of health, you can get away with very little exercise. You know, also my experience have found that high intensity, shorter duration workouts often prove to be more effective and efficient than low intensity, long duration workouts. Again, if you want to do a long duration workout and just because you enjoy it, by all means, that's fine. Still make sure you're doing it right so you don't injure yourself or become overtrained. And also, you know, unless you're a competitive athlete and are training for a specific skill, 10 to 30 minutes is plenty to achieve low to moderate athletic levels of health and performance. All right. But there's more in this inside the optimizing your exercise module. So definitely check that out, Octavia, and anyone else who's watching, join the dojo so you can check that out inside the Optimize Self Arsenal. All right. Okay, how conducive is your environment? Things like work, home, peer group, etc., to you achieving your goals. And Octavia says, so this is on scale from 1 to 10, 10 being ideal, 1 being not very. She says 4. So this is important because I think in 2 things that are always influencing those 7 other foundations of health are your environment and mindset. So right now we're talking about environment. Well, you know, everybody knows the saying, you are what you eat. Granted, I like to take that further and say you are what you eats, and also you are only what you absorb. But just like you are what you eat, you are who you hang out with, what you read, what you watch, what you listen to, what and who you surround yourself with, and most importantly, what you do most frequently. That is why I believe it's important to surround yourself with people like you, with like-minded people with the same or similar goals as you, like those found inside the Optimize Self Dojo. And that's actually probably one of the founding principles, if not probably the first one that I thought of creating the group, which is building an accountability and support group for members to lean on one another. So by all means, lean on your fellow dojo members, your fellow ninjas and ninjettes, including myself, to hold you accountable and also support you in your health, fitness, wellness endeavors. Okay. See, what is your general mindset? And Octavia says overwhelmed, which is completely understandable. Octavia and everyone else who's feeling overwhelmed, I totally feel you on this one, and I'm in the business. I can only let alone how people feel who are, doctors and firemen, police officers, and nurses, and whatever your job is, trying to figure this out. Most of my waking hours is put towards figuring all this out and trying to convey it to people like yourself. If you're not in the biz, oh my gosh, it's got to be even that much more overwhelming and frustrating. And also being that I would say most of the health info that's there, and there's more and more being added every day. I kind of wish we could just put a plug in and say, wait, no more until we figure out what we already know, and actually be able to execute on it and apply it to our daily lives. There's no more new stuff, no more new health, fitness, wellness stuff. Just let us take in what we already have and figure out how to use it in our daily lives. But just more and more stuff keeps coming out, and unfortunately, most of it is made up of misinformation, marketing, and social memes. So I can understand if you're at the bottom of the hill and you're looking at the very top, and it's just thousands or tens of thousands of feet high. It's like, oh my gosh, and maybe you got to push a boulder up. It may seem like you have to push a boulder up there. It seems very overwhelming and daunting. So just look the next 5 steps, get there, and then look 5 steps ahead and get there. So just focus on optimizing the next level of the next most vital foundation of health necessary to thrive in life. So first focus on your breathing. And when you've optimized your breathing, or at least gotten 80% or above, where that conscious diaphragmatic breathing is happening automatically. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to train for it. You go, cool, I got that set in. I've trained my central nervous system on how to breathe properly. Okay, now I'm going to move on to hydration. Am I drinking, half my body weight in ounces of water per day consistently? Okay, if so, cool. I'm going to move on to my sleep. Maybe I'm sleeping enough, but I need to improve the quality of my sleep. And then you work on that. So, if you look at the optimized health system and the pyramid that's set up, and you got breathing, hydration, sleep, nutrition, stress, movement, exercise, work on those. Stop from the bottom of the pyramid and then work your way up. Obviously, it doesn't make sense to start at the top and then work your way at the bottom, or start in the middle and then work your way out. Just take it, like I said, 5 steps ahead, or take it one foundation of health at a time. And I think that'll help be a bit less overwhelming. I know there's still a lot to take in, but just go one foundation of health at a time. Let's see. Is there anything else that you feel, think, believe is contributing to holding you back from being your optimized self? Octavia says time and lack of resources. To which I'd have to respond, this is one that a lot of people say, I don't have the time to do that. I don't have the time to do that. I would say getting out of chronic pain, realigning your posture, improving your performance, and ultimately optimizing your overall well-being, it doesn't necessarily call for more time or money as it does a different mindset and strategy. And I'll give you a couple examples. For one, you have to breathe all day. If you don't, you're going to die. But you might as well breathe correctly. So doing so doesn't take any more time. Yes, at first, for maybe, I would say most people take a week or 2 to retrain their central nervous system on how to breathe with the diaphragm. So maybe you're looking at 15 minutes per day for a week or 2, and then boom, you get that central nervous system component back, the diaphragmatic breathing back. And then you're fine. You know, you're going to breathe anyways, but now you're breathing correctly. And that's going to, sorry if I'm getting a little washed, the sun's moving around, but that's going to help you a lot just by getting your breathing under control. Another one, and this is kind of going more biomechanically speaking, posture, anatomy, is footwear. A lot of people who suffer from hip pain, back pain, and they're in extension. So I'll scoot back here and I'll show you. So maybe their hips are out like this, and their posture is kind of like this, and they think, yeah, my back hurts. I said, no wonder, you're turning it into like an accordion, smushing down on it, and your hips are out in extension, and your iliopsoas muscles are long and taut, trying to hold you from like totally bailing forward and falling on your face. And you look down at their feet, and they're in heels. And I don't just mean high heels, but some type of positive heeled shoe where the heel is higher than the toes or the balls of the feet. And the problem with that is the higher the heel goes, the more it shifts your center of gravity forward. All right. And then that leads to all those postural dysfunctions, compensations that I just demonstrated to you, and some of the symptoms like lower back pain, hip pain, can lead to shoulder headaches, migraines, all those symptoms. Well, you're going to put shoes on each day, before you go out. Well, you could just simply put a zero drop shoe on, a neutral shoe where your heel is even with the balls of your feet and your toes, or maybe in some cases a negative heeled shoe where your heel is slightly lower. So now instead of having your body weight shifted forward because your heels are up and you're leaning forward like this, now your heels are even, and automatically your hips come under. A lot of times people say, yeah, what posture exercise do I do to do this? And I said, all right, you know how you put your shoes on in the morning, you put this pair of shoes on? They say, yeah. I said, go put on this other different pair of shoes. And they're like, and? I'm like, no, man, like, that's it. That's all you do differently. To hell with the exercises. Why spend 20 to 30 minutes a day doing exercises when all you have to do is change the environment that your foot and ankle sit on and in, which then changes the function of the foot and ankle, which then changes the position and the function of the lower leg, the knee, the upper leg, the hips, the entire spine, the shoulder girdle, the neck, the head, all of that, right? By all means, postural corrective exercises are great, but what if you just put on a different shoe? That doesn't take you any more time. You got to put on a shoe anyways. So again, a lot of it just has to do with mindset and strategy. Doesn't necessarily take you more time. As far as resources, I don't know if you meant money by that, but a lot of times people think like, oh, it costs a lot to be healthy. And it really depends on how you look at it. Does paying for, healthier food and maybe healthier things cost more than the unhealthy versions? Yes, usually. But here's the thing. And I actually wrote this down the other day because I was doing some research for something else. I don't know if I can find it. Let's see. Oh, here we go. I did find it really quick. In 1960, Americans spent 17.5% of their income on food and 5.2% of national income on healthcare. Since then, those numbers have flipped. Coincidence? I think not. So hopefully you get my point there. It's that you're going to pay for your health one way or another. You can either pay a little bit more upfront, for certain higher quality of foods, or maybe some pieces of exercise equipment like I have back there. And yes, you're going to pay for it more upfront, but you're also going to save money in the long term on your overall health care as you get older, because an ounce of a prevention is worth a pound in cure. Same goes for our money. A penny worth of paid towards prevention is going to save you dollars or tens of dollars or hundreds of dollars in what it's going to cost to cure things if you don't avoid them beforehand. Okay. Or you could not put the money into, healthier things now, and you can save money up front, but I guarantee you will develop certain lifestyle diseases, whether it be diabetes, certain chronic pain symptoms and things like that, and you will pay more for surgeries and and PT and other things that, even though may say, well, my insurance covers, you got to pay for that insurance, you got to pay the higher premiums, drugs. and the quality of your life isn't going to be, the same. And so you're going to pay for it later on. I think that price that you pay later on is going to be higher than the price you paid for the healthier lifestyle up front. So that's my take on it, but everybody needs to make their own decision on that. Okay. Let's see, we're getting towards the end here. Who holds you accountable and supports you in your health, fitness, wellness endeavors? Octavia says, no one but me. And Octavia and anyone else who says, I hold myself accountable, that's a real shame. And let me explain, holding yourself accountable is good. And it is a common answer that I receive and that I used to think of myself as very honorable. Like, wow, that's great. So-and-so is holding themselves accountable. But over the years, my view on how I view this answer has changed. Now I think, relying solely on yourself and what to be best is like taking all your money and investing it in one stock simply because you like their logo. It's just not a good idea. Instead, what I recommend now is to find like-minded people with the same or similar goals as you and leverage off each other's collective time, knowledge, and experience. Going this route is exponentially more effective and efficient. And this is one of the founding principles of the Optimized Self Dojo. Excuse me, I can't even pronounce it now. The Optimized Self Dojo. One of the things I always thought is, people kind of poo-poo all over the healthcare system. Well, the self-care system isn't so great either. It's good. There's good parts to it, but there's holes in it, which is, healthcare people, I would say in healthcare, people unload the responsibility of their own well-being onto others, the health professionals. Self-care says, well, I'm going to take care of just myself. But the only problem is then you're just taking care of yourself and you're only basing off those decisions off of what you know to be best. But if you take away the negatives of healthcare and self-care, you take the best of what healthcare and self-care has to offer, you put them together and you get welfare. And I don't mean welfare like food stamps or anything. I mean welfare as in community care, caring for oneself, but also looking to the left and to the right and taking care of the friend, the family member, the fellow ninja at dojo member, and taking care of one another as an overall species, and I think that's what's missing. I think that's what's needed. So Octavia and anyone else, looking to join, if you're in the dojo, if you're looking to join the dojo, use the built-in accountability. Excuse me, use the built-in accountability and support of the group, because the more people that you're accountable to, the more likely you will do what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like doing it. A lot of people say, I hold myself accountable. I'm like, yeah, I've held myself accountable for a lot of things too that I've failed at. The reason being is because if I fail, I can always justify it to myself in my mind. I can watch a good movie, I can have a good meal or something, and I'm like, oh, that sucked, and now, oh, I'm better, okay. But if you tell tens of people or hundreds of people or thousands of people, I'm going to do this thing, and you by this time, make sure to put a time and date to it, and you don't do it, you're not just letting yourself down, you're letting all those other people down, or better yet, if you have a commitment contract, and this is something I like stick.com, which is stick with 2Ks.com, and they use things like social shaming and not like in a bad, really mean way, but just again, as kind of an accountability commitment type of thing. Not people calling you names or things like that, but just when you succeed, people know about it. And when you fail at what you said you're going to do, people know about it. Like all your Facebook friends, all your Twitter friends, everybody. And even if you want to take it one step further, they allow you to put money into escrow to go towards, you can put it towards certain individuals, charities, but the one that works the best is anti-charities. So let's say you're like, oh, the Ku Klux Klan, I hate them. I would never want a penny of my money to go towards them. But you say, I'm going to put 5% of my annual income in escrow through Stick, and I'm going to meet this goal. I'm going to lose this weight. I'm going to get out of pain. I'm going to do this thing. And if I don't, and you can make little markers like each week, each month, I'm going to do this. And if you don't, and you have a third party that checks off on you to make sure you're doing these things, if not, that 5% of your annual income goes towards the Ku Klux Klan. That hurts. So a lot of times when people aren't meeting their deadlines, when they're not succeeding, when they're not making progress, it's because the stakes aren't high enough. And the stakes are definitely not high enough if you just only hold yourself accountable. And I don't mean to diss on Octavia or anyone else, because I used to do this too. Oh, I hold myself accountable. Yeah, who gives a shit? Really, I just mean that literally, other than yourself, if you only hold yourself accountable, so what? Again, it's very easy to justify and get over why you didn't do the things necessary. But if you're being held accountable by, like I said, tens, hundreds, thousands of people, and you're like, oh, I'm not only holding accountable to myself, but these other people are holding me accountable, and not only holding you accountable, but they're supporting you in what you're trying to do. That has much more weight to it. That's much more powerful. And that's one of the founding principles of the Optimize Self Dojo. We don't usually do the commitment things and raise the money or do the whole money and escrow thing. That is something though you can do yourself. And if dojo members want to do it between each other, that's absolutely fine. Again, the website is stick.com with 2 Ks, so stickk.com. But yeah, I think there's definitely power in numbers when it comes to accountability and support. Of course, I asked, do you know about the Optimize Self Dojo, which of course Octavia does, because she recently joined. So welcome, Octavia. Hopefully you find this response helpful in hopefully more ways than one. What would you love to see in your inbox from OptimizeSelf.ninja? Tutorials for stretches and fixes for pain is Octavia's answer. So like I said, Octavia, check out the Optimize Self First Aid Kit and Correcting Common Posture Deviations series found inside the Optimize Self Arsenal, which is in the dojo. And let's see, last question. You didn't think there was an end to this, did you? Have you shared OptimizeSelf.ninja with a friend, family member, or someone you care about? Octavia says no, but I promise I will. Great, Octavia. I think that's awesome. Please invite them to join the Optimize Self Dojo. Like I just mentioned previously, there's definitely power in numbers. The Optimize Self Dojo, it's a place where we accumulate the collective time, knowledge, and experience of the group so we can leverage off each other's time, knowledge, and experience to find solutions to our problems quicker and faster, while simultaneously avoiding some of the most common pitfalls, as well as mistakes that you may not even be aware you could make to get the results we're after, basically get you from where you are now to where you want to be as quickly and efficiently as possible. So yeah, tell your friends and family. And also tell them that there is 4 more one-time fee memberships. So one for $27, $28, $29, $30. After that, they're going to be going to an annual, biannual, quarterly, reoccurring type of membership. Okay. So just make sure they know that, because I always like to reward action takers, people that join, that's why they're getting in at the lower cost. So make sure to tell them that. And I think that about wraps it up. Octavia, if you found this response helpful, which I will be emailing you a link to, please like the video on YouTube, share it with anyone that you think could benefit from this information, maybe a friends, family members that are in the same or similar boat as you, and maybe this video can help them. If so, share it with them on your favorite social media platform or email them a link to the video to watch. And if you haven't already done so, go ahead and click the subscribe button on the Optimize Self Ninja YouTube channel. That way you stay up to date with all the recent happenings and going on. And I look forward to seeing you inside the Optimize Self Dojo. Until then, take care and be a good human. All right, let me grab some water and we will move on to the second topic of the day. These last 2 topics, I promise you, are much, much shorter. Switch up my sitting position here. That's Carmen in the background. She's moaning. She's like, all right, we gotta wrap this up. Let's go. Okay. So Michael emails in, and this is me reading emails, Michael. I have a high left hip. Let me see if I can get up and actually do this so you guys can actually get a visual here. I don't know, something like that. Let's see. I have a high left hip and a pronated right foot. My pain is in left lower back and left femur internal rotators, so like here. Any idea of what is going on? So yes, I do. No, I did give it some thought before that. I didn't just figure it out, but yeah, it sounds like you said, the left internal rotators, as well as probably some of the adductors which for those of you that don't know, it just means the inner thigh muscles, adductors. Your QL and your spinal erectors are overactive, i.e. compensating because of your elevated hip and pronated right foot. That said, I'm going to point you to 2 video posts I already did that include links to exercise tutorials. So there's a routine exercise you should do in a particular order. Make sure to take them in sequence. And each one, you'll see it's blue, it's hyperlinked. You click on it, and depending on your browser settings, it'll open up a other window or tab on YouTube, and it'll show my wife Anya and I demonstrating how to do the exercises, so on and so forth. So one of them is the elevated hip routine, and the other is the it's a post called the first one is called Correcting Common Posture Deviations, Hip/Pelvic Elevation. The second one is Foot/Ankle Biomechanics 101, and I'll include links to both of those in the show notes below. So that's the YouTube description, and if you just scroll down under mention links, you'll see it. Okay. So that kind of takes care of the biomechanical side, the physical aspects. But here's something I want you to really, really hone in on. All right. If you take one thing away from today, I know you want to quickly go check out those links and what exercise should I do, and it's all exciting. And I love exercise and corrective exercises too, and kind of figuring out that problem. But remember that the human body is a stimulus response organism that responds to stimulus 24/7 without prejudice. So it's what you do the majority of the time that matters the most, not your best intentions. So what does that mean? Let's break it down just a little bit more. Well, that means exercise, it's important, but it's part of the recipe. It's not the entire recipe. It's part of the equation. It's not the entire equation. And so what I would say is exercise, the results you get from it are always going to be predetermined or limited by the accumulative quality or state of things like your breathing, hydration, sleep, nutrition, stress, movement, environment, mindset, those types of things, okay? So make sure you've addressed those things so that you get the most out of the best ROI, your return on investment, for the time and energy you put into exercise. Because what I hate seeing almost more than anything else is people trying to accelerate and make progress with exercise when they have their foot on the brakes or even several emergency brakes up when it comes to, like I said, their breathing, hydration, sleep, nutrition. If you want for the exercise to work, if you want your body to respond and adapt to the stimuli of exercise, whether it be strengthening, stretching, what have you, then make sure you're leading a healthy lifestyle. You've taken care of your breathing, hydration, sleep, nutrition, stress, movement, all that stuff. Either before, or at least make sure you're simultaneously addressing it as you start to use the elevated hip routine and the routine found over on the Foot and Ankle Biomechanics 101 post, those 2 that I linked to below. Okay, so just promise me you'll do that. And also head on over to optimizeself.ninja. Again, that's optimizeself.ninja. And where actually this show and some of all the past episodes of the Optimize Self show will be posted at the top. But then scroll below there and you'll start to see all the different components and modules and resources and tools and tutorials and all that are included inside the Optimize Self Dojo, because I think that'd be something that I think you'd be interested in and that would definitely be beneficial for you. So check that out. Again, it's over at Optimize Self Dojo, and by all means, if there's anything else I can do to help you, please contact me again. All right. Thanks, Michael, for writing in, and I look forward to hearing from you again. Until then, take care and be a good human. All right, let me take a swig of water here, and we will talk about our last topic of the day. Whew. All right. So I want to give you a little teaser about the Optimized Self fundamental truths. And this is something that an online marketing world, I guess they would call it the lead magnet or the opt-in, the thing you get for signing up to the email list. Well, usually the optimized self-test. But I'm not getting rid of that, but I'm only going to make that available to Dojo members. And the reason being is because I found some people who were taking the test, although it would always lead to them asking better questions, the mindset wasn't there. And that wasn't their fault, that was my fault, because I gave access to the test prematurely. So the fundamental truths and the will probably turn out to be a 14-part email series that you'll get after signing up will make sure that you're taking into consideration all the components, all the variables that factor into your overall well-being, and look at, hey, this isn't just a what do I do problem. This is a why should I be doing it? How should I go about doing it? Type of problem more than anything else. Okay, so I'm going to read you the intro to the Optimized Self Fundamental Truths. This is going to be hosted in Google Docs, so it's not like cemented. It could always change, and actually probably a couple times a year I'll have people vote on what Optimized Self Truths are edited out or added in or changed in any way. So here it is. And I'm literally going to just read this off here. So if you gain access to the Optimized Self Fundamental Truths, you'll see at the top, logo says Optimized Self Fundamental Truths, and then it says, below is a collection of the most important life lessons I have learned from 14 plus years in the health, fitness, and wellness industries, otherwise known as the Making Bodies Better world, as well as the additional 15 years of my life. Did I just show my age? It actually says that. It says, did I just show my age? Better yet, this list is a direct result of spending tens of thousands of hours working with thousands of clients and studying from hundreds of high caliber mentors. This way, you get to reap the rewards from my and others' life experiences without having to do any of the heavy lifting. How awesome is that? So enjoy. And then it starts the list of the optimized self-truths. And again, these are designed to improve self-awareness and better get to know thyself. I know that may seem kind of airy-fairy, but I think emotional intelligence, fitness, and stamina should be prioritized over intellect and action. Definitely intellect, because let's be honest, in 2015, it's never been less valuable to be smart, to know things, because guess what? We all know everything, or at least we all have access to the ability to know anything. Before pre-internet, yeah, it was pretty good to have things memorized in your head and everything. That was pretty awesome. Now, I mean, you could be really, really stupid and know a lot of stuff or have access to it. I think a skill that a lot of people haven't developed is, like I said, self-awareness and emotional intelligence. Excuse me. Emotional intelligence, fitness, and stamina. And then, of course, having that to be able to carry out and do what it is you learned. All right. So that's what I hope the fundamental truths will have, because I know a common, I guess you call it, barrier that I'm coming up against, and I've talked about this with other health professionals, is before anybody is open to try something new, unless they already find what they're doing isn't working. Sometimes people will have trouble admitting that because they feel like it is a part of them. But if it's even something that they're doing that's not giving them the best results, there's something that maybe that you as a health professional, someone with experience, knows, hey, I hear what you're doing, this could be better. Before they even open up to it, they have to even realize, well, like, why should you care about that thing? Why does that thing matter? And our mindsets, our belief system, we've been indoctrinated from a very young age to believe in things by all the misinformation, marketing, and social memes. It's a little bit like the Matrix. Do you want to take the red pill or the blue pill? Do you want to be unplugged? Do you want to see reality? Do you want to know why you're not getting the results? Do you want to know why you're not healthy? Are you open to that? And so I think that barrier has to be tackled first, or overcame first. Whatever you do with a hurdle, you jump it, right? You climb it. I don't know, but that hurdle has to be addressed first before just saying, well, here's this new info, and here's this new technique and method and strategy, and here's what you should do, and here's the science. We just inundate people with minutia and all this stuff that fuzz, get out of here. That further, I think, confuses and like Octavia earlier today said, you know, overwhelms her. Well, I don't blame people. You know, I'm even in this business and I'm overwhelmed and frustrated. I wish for the next decade we can put an absolute stop to health, fitness, and wellness research. And I know there's a lot of good stuff that comes out of it, so maybe that's going too far, but maybe not. Maybe it's, hey, let's take with what we already know and let's actually try to convey and communicate it to the masses better. And then here's a crazy thought, let's actually get them to do it. Because a lot of people say, oh, I know this, or I have access to this thing. I said, that's great, but knowing, there's a big difference between knowing, did, and doing. You know, knowing and not doing is practically the same as not knowing. So it's important that we first know, then we have to do, and then we have to continue doing. All right. So anyways, I look forward to bringing everybody that in the Optimize Self Fundamental Truths, as well as the following kind of autoresponder email series that I'll make for that. And like I said, the Optimize Self test will still be available, but it'll just be in the Optimize Self Dojo. All right. Let me get one more water and we will close this thing out. All right. Well, thank you for watching, for listening, for whistling, watching. I don't know what the mix of those words would be, but thank you for joining me today. You know, this is going to probably be the last episode done in this type of format. There's going to be a lot of new changes starting next week. Hopefully, if I get stuff done in time. If not, I'll be going on a little hiatus. Maybe next week there's only going to be one episode, not two of the show. That's fine. I'm actually getting kind of comfortable with sometimes stepping back and getting done what needs to be done rather than just doing. Got to practice what I preach, right? Every once in a while, you got to stop, audit yourself, review, and then modify to see what can be better. That's kind of what I'm doing right now. Yeah, so I look forward to bringing everyone, including you're right there, all that neat, fun stuff, the Optimized Self, fundamental self-truths, everything we just talked about. If you do have any questions for me, again, the test, the Optimized Self test will be up for probably the next couple of days. After that, text and send me a voicemail to 619-800-2459. All right. And if you haven't already done so, head on over to optimizeself.ninja. Right. There it is. And check out everything that's included inside the Optimize Self Dojo, because something else that I really quickly am going to be transitioning to here, probably in the next 4 to 5, probably just 4 memberships that are sold, is going over to a annual, biannual, and quarterly recurring type of monthly membership. All right, but right now you can get in for a one-time fee. You're never going to be charged more, no matter how much more is added to it. You'll be grandfathered in. You can get started out for $27. So yeah, I would definitely recommend getting on that while the cost is so low. And if you haven't already, don't forget to, if you're watching this on YouTube, if you're not, please head over there, like the video, share it with someone that you think this information could benefit on your favorite social media platform or via email, and go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already done so to the Optimize Self Ninja YouTube channel. That way stay up to date with all the recent happenings and going on inside the Optimize Self ecosystem. All right, with that said, I bid you all a fair adieu. Adieu? Is that how you pronounce it? I don't know. I say bye. I'll see you guys inside the next video, whenever that one is. It'll be some point next week. Until then, take care and be a good human. It didn't turn off.